Hello and welcome to the Not My Job Pod. I am your host, Emily Gant, and today I am joined by the wonderful Pip Roper, who I pulled on here today to talk about improv, amongst other things. But Pip, you are also a tour guide here in Berlin. So yeah, I guess what my question then is, what's the thing that brings you joy and what's the thing that brings you money? Like, how do you
Oh yeah, that's it, isn't it? That is the hi.
Hi,
Yeah.
sorry, we were
n-
talking earlier, but I
No,
guess it's
yeah.
now they're like, all right, well, now you're in the middle of it.
Well, yeah, that's the question, isn't it? That's the question because yeah, we're at late stage capitalism now, aren't we? So like it's a myth, the idea that you can kind of follow your dreams and yeah. Oh, maybe that's extremely cynical. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. What brings you joy? What brings you money? Ultimate balance. Do you know, I find as time goes by, I am able to find a lot more joy in guiding than I first was in being a tour guide. I know you spoke to Johnny Whitlam. Everyone knows Johnny Whitlam. Hi, Johnny Whitlam, tour guide extraordinaire in Berlin. We host a podcast together. And actually, hosting the podcast is it's called History Flakes, the Berlin and Berlin adjacent history podcast.
Hmm.
And yeah, I studied history and I do love reading history. I've always have. I find it a great comfort. So actually, I do get to do my job does bring me a certain amount of joy. Not in -10 weather when you have to be outside walking around. That's less fun. But yeah, I do that for money. Doesn't bring in loads.
You actually do get to find a little bit more joy in the work you do, like as like the job to survive, but also like finding a little bit of joy despite the late stage capitalism.
I think I think I think we kind of got it in. Mainly I just the thing that I also enjoy and I note about it is that, during the pandemic I did know that people were kind of like there were people going around with cameras like filming the city and like fair play, people trying to kind of like in this extremely bizarre, like lest we forget, extremely bizarre situation where like people were going around the city with cameras and being like, this is this and doing tours and and there's certain elements of my job where it's like, wow, you just will never replace a human being in this, like ever. You just can't. Like
Mhm.
it's people want human beings in front of them. They just do. No matter how often someone will tell you, oh, this can be. It's like people don't want people to be replaced by computers, really. I know that's a broader topic, but for this job, it's kind of like I also work sometimes in coordinating big groups and
Mhm.
events, and it's like try getting a room full of people to understand and listen to you and know where they're going for dinner and know what time they need to get on a bus. Like it will never be replaced. You can never do that with a screen. People have apps. They know when they're supposed to get on the bus. There's a time, there's a schedule. They don't follow it. They need a person telling them. So
Yeah.
so I always feel quite secure in
Yeah,
that
but also
sense, to be honest.
it like changes the vibe. I don't know, like the number of times like I specifically when I think of like best tour I've ever been on, it was actually a museum trip to the Prado in Madrid. And it was called Hotties at the Prado. And
Oh, love
basically,
that.
yeah, you like show up and like it's this guy, well, it's either him or his wife, but like they're both like very like hyper feminist and they're like telling you they're like feeding you little details about the artist and then like who they're actually painting and who they pretended it was and whose mistress was who. And like you're like kind of confused as you're going through. And then like all of a sudden they're like, yeah, but who painted this one? And you're like, this person. And they're like, yeah, but what is this lady? And then you realize you're like, like they're sleeping together. And then like
Yeah.
you freak out and you're like about to like run through the museum. And he's like, you can't run. You can't
No.
actually.
But gossip. It's about gossip.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, I think that's the thing I love about it is that when you go back, like, everyone is just like, everyone is so human. Johnny and I recently recorded about Queen Louisa
Mhm.
of Prussia, and she has to flee Prussia. She sounds pretty nice. She does sound genuinely pretty sound. She has to flee Prussia because of Napoleon. And then at some point, her husband's like, I need you to go and talk to Napoleon, who's been vile about her. And I was like, and I said to Johnny, I was like, there are men I refuse to be in a room with. And then if you turn around to me and was like, you have to go and beg this man, I'd be like, oh my God, and you just think like the human element of that and the experience and the humiliation and being like, but I love my husband and I love my country and blah, 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 blah. And now I have to go and beg this absolute arsehole. It's just so anathema to who I am. And it's just so human. It's like so dramatic and everything boiling down to personalities and characters. Like I'm from Britain. All we learn about is the Second World War and Henry VIII.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I freaking love it. And the Second World War kind of gives us our jobs, to be honest, in Berlin. But like the Henry VIII stuff, you're like, this is just Real Housewives. That's
Yeah.
what this is. This is Real Housewives of Henry VIII.
But also that's why I love your podcast as well, though, because it is kind of, I don't know, like I feel like I'm tuning in to like, yeah, gossip and like a little bit of dirt. I don't know. It's just the way that it's history is explained. I'm like, I don't feel like I'm listening to, well, in 1847, blah, 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 blah. It's like it's a story and it's like real people and
Oh, I
people.
really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the main, because a lot of people say to me like, "Oh, I was never very good." And actually, people on tours quite often, because that's another lovely thing about doing the tour guiding job is that people are on holiday. Usually, you're talking to people who are generally in a good mood, like.
Right.
They're not working, they've hopefully, yes, some of them are answering the odd email, but like generally they're not, they're there with their families or as a couple and they're trying to like, they're just kind of diving in and they're in a good mood and they want to learn, but they don't want to be lectured. And this is something I actually had to learn because I think quite early on as a guide, which is like 10 years ago now, I used to feel very, as a younger woman as well, I would feel very insecure about because a lot of dudes know a lot about tanks, and you will have listened to me talk about this if you've heard. It's like they know a lot about
True.
tanks, and you're kind of like, I used to use my education as a shield, and I was like, I have a master's degree in history, and it was like I would bombard people with information, and now like I'm so much more confident in just being like, hey, I don't know that. That's not my field. Feel my charm. That's what you want. So yeah, I enjoy it a lot more. But sorry, my point was, this is going to happen a lot, Emily. I'm sorry. There'll be meandering
No, I
thought
love it. This is what
processes.
I want. I want the meander
But
away. Let the people feel your charm.
let the people feel my charm. They have no choice. But people would be like, I hated history in school. And it's like, yeah, it's a shame. You just probably didn't have, or it was really quite staid or quite like, just very, this is a date and this happened. And I always say to people, you don't have to be great at dates. You just, although a friend of mine, a colleague, we were talking about the fact that we both are quite good at dates now, except they're Nazi dates. So whenever anyone is like, I'm getting married on this day, it's like, well, do you know that this this happened on this?
Maybe do it next Tuesday.
Do it? No, yeah. Oh God, yeah. So yeah, it's a privilege really. And also like Berlin is like, I think and I say this on tours, I think it's very important not to be European centric or Western centric, obviously. But at the same time, if you really want to understand the 20th century, you can be talking about so much through the framework of Berlin. You can be thinking about the rise and fall of empire very, very quickly and industrialization very, very quickly. And also like, Berlin from the late 19th century to the early 20th century and the growth and how traumatic that was and how it really kind of was a difficult birth of a lot of like social democratic movements in many ways and the communist movement in many ways and workers' rights and a lot of different things. We forget that because the Nazis come in and obviously wipe it away. And then so much and then the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War and that internationally, that's not even mentioning the Second World War and the Holocaust
Mm-hmm.
and what that means to us globally. And yeah, it's just on a massive, massive scale. And sometimes I'm like, wow, Germany, chill out. It's
Stop
like
being so historic. It's too
they're
much.
so they're so dramatic. Like they do everything like to the nth degree.
No, but I like, I think about, because it was, Johnny said that you guys kind of like choose, like one of you will choose like a topic and then the other kind of supports either historically or kind of comedically.
Yeah.
Um, and one of my favorite episodes of your podcast was the one you did on Angela Davis, which I was 100% your research, your episode. Um, aided comedically excellently by the team. But yeah, it was so interesting to me because yeah, it's I feel like Berlin is just kind of like this unique lens in which like even the title of it, I was like, Angela Davis, what does she have to do with Germany? And like it was just like a fascinating episode. And yeah, you don't really realize that kind of people who had roots to maybe leftist policy or leftist ideologies, obviously, yeah, East Berlin would have been the place to be. So I don't know. It was just really, there's always something like new. Do you ever get like overwhelmed by it or still discovering things?
Yeah, thank I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of that episode. I didn't. That's one of our ones where we're kind of like, is this Berlin or is it? And it is Berlin. I
I
think.
thought it
And
was. It
yeah, I
totally was.
mean, there's definitely topics where we're like, this is not about Berlin, but it's like, well, I kind of know that our listeners will enjoy it. So another one that was maybe a little bit more cheeky was Josephine Baker. She came like twice for like a week, but she's kind of, she's fun in that era, and obviously when you're thinking about the interwar era. But yeah, Angela Davis's was so fascinating because I think you did get this like, yeah, very specific like look at a place. And again, thinking about her never really coming out and saying, sorry that I said this about the wall. It's like, no, like stop making, you know, making these activists have to be perfect, have to be, they have to have the toe the perfect line or something like that. But yeah, overwhelmed with the topics and stuff. I think sometimes we do have to try a little bit to avoid the pull of the Nazi history because there's so much, but at the same time, it's so rich. And there's just topics in there that you're like, oh, and I've just been today, I was like, oh, looking at a topic, and I was like, wow, that's really fascinating. And I thought it was a bit more naive, and then you're like, it gets really interesting. And then though, and this character becomes increasingly problematic, and that's more interesting than just the context of his life earlier. So, and I think sometimes we're both a bit like, oh, Jesus, these Nazis. The more I
But
hear about them,
I don't know. I feel like that about the present day because, like, obviously, I don't know. I run like the little Instagram channel with just like political takes, and like sometimes people would be like, oh, you're going so negative about everything, and I'm like, well, A, like kind of sometimes the negative stuff is the interesting stuff, and then B, I don't know, like that is what kind of gets engagement online. And so like kind of balancing that because yeah, if you find like a cute happy story and then you share that, that's not like engaging. And I guess that's the problem with like news cycles in general though.
yeah, it is right.
It's
Yeah, I think yeah. Charge, and I have to admit, like one thing I'm really grateful for in my education was studying media studies.
Mhm.
When I was a teenager, I had this incredible English literature and media studies teacher, and she really taught us how to think, like, and how to just like, and I recognize myself sometimes seeing a headline and being like, oh my God. And it's like, and of course, every everything is outrageous, like don't get me wrong, like we are dealing with like the most outrageous of outrageous, but then sometimes just kind of being like, okay, yes, okay, that's happened, but let's have a look at like the context of this a little bit more, because I can also see a lot of left baiting as well. After, I mean, living in the world is left baiting when you live in a capital like that's just kind of living in a capitalist system, but like sometimes you're like, wow, that's been tweaked to really take it a
irritate.
bit further. And I'm always a bit like, oh, just kind of be careful with that. But yeah, so the idea of like rage baiting and like things being more negative, kind of getting more, I don't know. We're also like, we're quite dark creatures. I don't know. Like, I keep thinking about like, I know that I think we're all getting into our witchy girl season, right? We're all witchy girlies now. We're all like looking at the moon and like into the cycle of the year because we
Casting
need
spells.
casting spells and like reading tarot because like why is that? Like we're doing it because there's no answers. I don't know.
I feel like it's like a modern day substitute for religion. It's like, well, we're kind of like we've pushed religion aside. We're done with that now, but like we still kind of need something to like,
Yeah,
explain
absolutely.
things.
We need ritual and we need togetherness. And my dad is like, he's a great guy. He's like extremely scientifically minded. And he's always like, he's one of these guys who like religion, blah. And you're like, yeah, okay. There's, institutionalized religion has done horrific things. Any institutional power has done that throughout history. But human beings need, there is a purpose that religion plays amongst human beings in communities there is a reason, like, that we have always done this in one form or another. We have to. We're social creatures. We know that. We know that we live longer when we live together. So yeah, I'm kind of like, yeah, you need these kind of like little ritualistic things and these, but with kind of diving into these things that in some ways are quite dark, like, you know, these like folky things. And because I think we need it to a certain extent. That doesn't kind of necessarily kind of like speak to what we were saying about learning about the Nazis, but I do think we are kind of like quite dark creatures and we
No,
need,
but I think it does. I think it fits. Like, because yeah, it's like why there's so many people drawn to this like horrific time in history. I don't know. Again, I'm not a historian. I'm just like guessing here. It's because it's horrific. So therefore it's interesting. It's also, I think I'm generalizing here, but I feel like it's like a lot of like white men who are really interested in World War II. And so like they kind of dive into that because it's they see themselves in it on either side. So like there's like this relational aspect to it. So like maybe there.
I think that's a really
Mm.
good point. I've always said that the Second World War is where they get to see themselves as the, and don't get me wrong, like I have had some like fantastic conversations with older white gentlemen like on tours, like, you know, they can be fantastic people. I know somebody think of the older white men, but I do think about the Second World War. It's a really interesting time where they can see themselves as both the goodies and the baddies. They get to kind of cosplay as either
Yeah.
because the Nazi system came out of the roots of the things that we set ourselves up as being the good guys. Like, you know, the Nazi system was kind of diving off a lot of the ideas of colonialism that was established by Britain and France in many ways, and the Enlightenment, and, you know, the progress only goes in one direction and it only goes forward, and eventually it leads to gas chambers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, a lot of people, I think that's been the most irritating discourse for me right now with everything that's happening with ICE in the US. They're like, oh, it's like Nazi Germany. And I'm like, well, Nazi Germany was pulling from Jim Crow laws. Nazi Germany was pulling from, you know, indigenous peoples internment camps in the United States. So, like, this is very homegrown in the
Yeah.
United States.
The pearl clutching is quite frustrating, right? You know, like I can find that quite frustrating when it's like, oh, they're doing this. And it's like, yeah, you know, like you know, we're capable of a lot of things. And we've always known that you're not supposed to, you know, isolate people or dehumanize people. We've known that. We've always known that. And
Mhm.
that's the thing I always find to be the one mainstay. And to be honest, it's one of the main things I talk about when I'm talking about the Holocaust. And that one of the main points that I try to get across is the idea that you can be as quote unquote civilized as you like. Quote, you know, Berlin in the mid 20th century was one of the most civilized places you could imagine. You know, it's also where the Wannsee Conference was planned from. And we're so progressive and we're so innovative. And the most, you know, incredible innovation to the Nazi regime was gas chambers. That was the greatest innovation you could think of. And innovation does not have a conscience. It doesn't, you know, it does not care. So the only thing that really kind of puts a stopper on this, that kind of helps us protect people, the only thing is not innovation, or it's not this, that, and the other, or science even. It's protecting people always, first and foremost.
Mhm.
And that's the thing that is just really frustrating, that you can't really kind of get across to people. And again, this is kind of why I love being a tour guide, because you're getting to talk about things that are like
Mhm.
actually quite deep in a way, because of course they are, because they dealt with the, you know, when you're dealing with the annihilation of a whole group of people because of who they are, it's a big topic. So
I imagine it's super interesting though, having just because, yeah, lots of different types of people come on tours as well. So I feel like I don't know, I'm trying to get less stuck in my own bubble because I feel like sometimes I just get surrounded by like people who think exactly like me and like they're a little left, but like they have some like pliability there. I don't know. It's like, and then that's all you see. And sometimes I don't know, I'll end up talking to someone who like I don't know that well, and they just state something like it's just plain fact, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. But like also I'm not saying I'm right and they're wrong. It's just coming at it from like a completely different angle. And so I assume like on the tours, yeah, you probably get a lot of that where you're like, oh, wait a second, the average person does think this, or
yeah, it can be. It can be. I had a couple last year where I was like, ah, okay. Like, and this doesn't, I remember having these two guys from Texas on a tour a few years ago, and they were really, both really tall, big guys. And they had just arrived in Europe. They'd never been before. It was father and son, both quite, you know, under 40. And we went to Sachsenhausen, the memorial concentration camp, a former concentration camp. And they were terrified when I came to pick them up because they're terrified of Europe. Because they like, and it was like, they were just like, who are you? Where are we going? And I was like, you booked the tour with me. So like, I'm not like, I'm not here to rob you. But like, and we went and we had the best freaking day. Like we had wildly different, this was years ago. This is like kind of pre-Trump and everything, but like wildly different, like political, opinions and stuff. We had very similar, senses of humor, and we had a great freaking day. Sorry, that was a meandering thing. But like, then you get like, you can get on with people like pretty well. And then occasionally when you talk about the bubble, sorry, this is more relevant. When you talk about the bubble, yeah, there was a couple that I had during the election last year, and they were referencing how, I think the reference was that like Kamala Harris was using AI to fill up the stadiums, and this had been debunked. And it was like, and I was like, but I didn't know. But in the moment, you're just like, I just have to take you on this freaking tour. Do you know? It is, and it's sometimes it is uncomfortable, and you feel like sometimes you're having to really smuggle stuff in, and sometimes you're like, this is a lost cause. It doesn't happen that often. You'd be surprised that people don't necessarily put things front and center. I do find a lot of people from the US at the moment are very keen to immediately be like, that's not us, and you're like, okay,
Okay, if you say
just
so.
don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Let's just like, but it does make politics very imminent, the topics,
Yeah.
I think, which is, does make for very interesting interactions in some sense.
Yeah. And I do see both sides of that argument where some people are like, oh, well, I don't want to be friends with someone who doesn't have my politics. But at the same time, I'm like you said with those guys from Texas, you're like, we had a great day. We were laughing. It was funny. Like, and I think the more you can find those commonalities between people, the more, because like if, I spend a whole day laughing and joking with someone and we have a rapport and they're like, oh, this person is quite cool. If I come out with something that they completely disagree with, they're like far more likely to hear me out. And so I just find this like, I feel in the last few years and granted, don't get me wrong, if somebody's like saying, ICE internment camps are fine, I'm probably not gonna, like that person. But like at the same time, it's like there has to be some sort of crossover between, it can't be like, oh, somebody has my politics, I like them, or they don't and I don't. Like there has to be like something in the middle.
Yeah, we know that in our own lives, don't we? Because families don't adhere.
Yeah.
Families do not adhere to those lines. They definitely, all you need to do is go and talk to like Auntie Betty or like whatever, and it's like, this is different, but I can't start slapping Auntie Betty around the face because she said this, that, or the other. Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? And I definitely, I feel the hypocrisy of capitalism in myself, in that, especially when I'm working, you're smuggling things in more because you do not feel like you can be as blatant about being like, yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. But actually, I think the point being, like, when you have them in front of you, they are more amenable,
Hmm.
which is, yeah. And yeah, I flip flop on that quite a lot. I know what you mean. Like, because sometimes I'm just like, it's not our job. It's not our job to be telling these people that they need to be humane. But
Hmm.
here we are,
Yeah.
and we have to take people with us. So I kind of flip flop between that, like, quite a lot, between being like, it's like, if you can't see people as human beings, I don't know what to say to you. But at the same time, we are going to have to bring people with us. We're just so nebulous, and there's so many of us, and we now have access to so much information and so many different takes that, yeah, the bubble is so real, isn't it? Like, and I find, even when I'm talking to my mum and dad, who were generally extremely sound, and we have very similar, they're kind of outraged about many of the things, but sometimes I'm like, wow, that's the thing we're outraged about this week.
Yeah.
I'm like, they've done this, and it's like, oh, okay.
This is what I'm mad about. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, that's all, like, the scammers, they're scammers, and you're like, okay, right, scammers, okay. Which I'm not saying there's not a problem, but it's like, right, okay,
There
this
might
is
be
where we are.
bigger problems, but yeah. Okay.
Sure, like, you guys are generally like quite safe, being, kind of, middle class white people in the north of England who own your own home. You're like, yes, I understand that that you're being bombarded with news as well, and that
Mhm.
it's designed to be scary for you in your specific,
Yeah. I do try to, yeah, again, like you said, it's like you have to take people with you, but at the same time, Yeah, finding like that balance of like empathy for, because also, if I grew up in a certain capacity or had a certain different education or, ended up like we're all just like a product of our own experiences. So I don't know. I definitely have to like check myself sometimes when I'm like, my opinion is better than yours because I've had more experiences or like something like that. And like nobody wants to be like talked down to. I feel like the way I just phrased that sounded pretty like snotty just on its own. But
No,
yeah.
these are topics that you're like constantly like wrangling with, right? And we feel different about them on any different day. Like,
Hmm.
we have more patience on any different day, I think, as well. And like that's why it kind of takes all of us, I suppose. Is that a
Hmm.
positive thing? Is that a hopeful thing? I don't know, to like to think about like, and yeah, if you are in a position to be like, okay, I can have this conversation. I remember watching something ages ago about people who, I think it was the 2016 election in the US, people were going around and trying to talk to people one on one on the doorstep, and someone was like, well, I'm voting, this way because I've never had anything and blah. And this person on the doorstep was like really tuned in and listened and was like, okay, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like digging into this person's life. And then when you eventually got there and it's like, we actually want to help, it's not because this kind of being pitted against each other is it's the main tool, isn't it? It's the main tool of the far right, I suppose, is just kind of convincing people that they have an enemy, and the enemy isn't fucking a billionaire.
Yeah.
Not fucking a billionaire isn't a fucking billionaire. That's the correct grammatical way to say that. But if you're fucking a billionaire, you're also a problem. So
Probably the enemy. No,
you're probably the enemy.
no, I think, and then going back to your point earlier though about like how community, yeah, because I think the tool of the far right is to push everybody away from one another. Absolutely. And then, yeah, kind of the way that we can combat that is through community. But then, of course, like, religion has its own set of like unique problems. And then the fact that we end up in organized religion not being the thing that we really want to do. And so, other ways, I'm trying to segue here.
Mhm.
Other ways that we kind of find community. I'm wondering a little bit more about is this kind of how you ended up doing improv? Was that a community thing or was that like an interest in theater?
It was an interesting theatre. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't the community that came with it was a pretty wonderful and pretty important bonus. Yeah, I started doing improv about 4 years ago, and I feel like a bit of an imposter because like there's plenty of people you could talk to who've been doing it for much longer and do it much better than I do. But yeah, I started about 4 years ago, and um I actually always wanted to act. I'd always wanted to like try stand up. And I think, I don't know what this is going to sound really sad, but like when I was about 12, I was like, well, everyone wants to act, so you can't do that. And I think, and it's not that my parents wouldn't have been like, but I think they were like, oh no, you're going to study. It's like you have to study. And it was like, okay, and I did that. And then yeah, I just like I got to the point where I improv had always been something because it's so easy to take the piss out of. I remember talking to the first class I ever did, my friend Zoe, who I perform with regularly now, which is such a treat. We both did our first class together, and she was like, oh yeah, I always thought it'd be kind of like a Michael Scott in the Office thing. And like, don't get me wrong, sometimes that's what it is. But what was my point? Yeah, we did it, and it's like it just ticked all my boxes
Hmm.
of what I needed, because I've done acting classes and I get very bored of reading the same script. I
Yeah.
just I just don't. I'm just like, okay, like, okay. And what I love about improv is that as a quite lazy person, you don't have to prepare. Well, I really shouldn't say that, because you do have to prepare for it. I practice every week. I'm on a house team at the Comedy Cafe in Berlin and Neukölln, and we practice every week. We drill, there is preparation, but it's the preparation to be on stage unprepared
Hmm.
is is something that I actually really love. Yeah, I wanted to perform, and then I wasn't really sure how I was going to do it, and then went to a class, and I remember thinking like, it doesn't have to be the greatest thing in your life. The key to a happy life to me is low expectations. So I set expectations low because I suspected that I really was going to enjoy it. And
Hmm.
then I went and I did really enjoy it. And most of my first class was all women, which I really enjoyed, and some really decent women. And yeah, and then luckily, like, yeah, I what I love about it as well is that the people that I do improv with, some of them are my closest friends, and I don't have to arrange to see them because we have a practice. And I
Yeah.
love that. And that's something that I think we could all do more of, whether it's improv or it's pottery or whatever, just like finding ways that it's like, oh, I regularly do this and I'm going to see so and so. Because
Yeah.
as much as I love meeting friends for coffee, it's fucking hard work, isn't it? To just be like, are you free this day? Oh no. And then I'm going away and I'm really sorry. Oh no, I'm really sorry. And everyone's guilty. And it's like, it's just life. Whereas, with this group of people, I get to see them
Yeah.
every week.
Yeah. I think we need more friends where we can just like show up at their houses. Like I have a
Yeah.
handful where like literally I'll just like call them. I'll be like, I'm downstairs. Can I come
Yeah.
up?
Yeah.
And I feel like we don't have that
No.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, having like a weekly thing where you can go and like see the same people is just like incredibly, incredibly valuable.
Yeah, it's priceless. Yeah. And yeah, and being lucky enough to be able to perform regularly as well. Even if it's just to like, you came to a show and I was so grateful because you brought two people. That's priceless. And I think it was a Wednesday night and it was late. So you don't expect to get loads of people. But I think there was maybe 7 people in the audience.
No, but it was like that was one of those nights though for me that because I was just gonna go by myself, and then I was like, I'll see. I have like a couple other friends in the neighborhood. I was like, I'll see what they're up to. So I sent messages out, and then yeah, the two guys were like, yeah, 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 and they didn't actually know each other. And I was like, okay. And at that time too, I didn't know because like you guys were good. Like it was funny. Like we literally my cheeks hurt by the end of it. It was
Oh,
just
stop
so
it. Thank you. This whole thing has been to set you up to say that,
yeah.
to flatter
No,
me.
but it was, and I again, maybe I had low expectations, but like I've been to a lot of stand up, I've been to a lot of improv, and I would say 92% of the time it's going to be kind of bad. 5% of the time it's going to be like, okay, that was funny, some funny moments, but like, yeah, what are we left with? 3%. Like that was like we were just laughing because it was so like the humor was like silly, but it was smart, but it was like my friend, I was so worried actually because he was like, you came out and then he was like, that was so dumb, but he was like smiling because he was happy it was dumb in a good way, and I was like, did he just insult the person I'm trying to like have on my podcast? But then you were like, that was the nicest thing anyone could have ever said to me. And I was like,
Yeah, well, I think he said he was like, "Oh, that was the dumbest thing," and but he'd enjoyed it, and it was like, yeah, like that's kind of because the thing is, someone saying like that was really dumb and I enjoyed it, as opposed to that was really dumb and it was painful to
no, he
watch.
loved it. He was
There's a difference.
yeah. No, no, no. He was laughing because that's his exact type of humor. Like, because there's like that one skit with like he was like a vampire or something, and like he just looks at me like, what is happening right now? But he was so happy because like that is exactly his style of like just jokes. And so like he would describe, I think, his own humor as kind of dumb. So
Nice.
yeah, it was just funny like how it came out. I was like, did you just insult the person I'm trying to like
Ah, feel free. It's fine. It's the
no,
same
no,
thing.
it definitely wasn't. It was not an insult. He meant it, yeah, very, very happily. Um, no, I don't know if because yeah, you guys do shows once a month, right? It's the
We do, yeah. So Turtle Logic, which is the group of we're an all-female team, there's 6 of us, and we have the show the second Wednesday of every month at the Comedy Cafe, which is just a great. And if anyone is looking to do classes, I have to plug this because I do think it's not it's not for everyone. Not everyone's going to do a class and then do it forever, but I definitely recommend it because it's a great way to meet people and also be humble as well, like go into something that's actually quite tricky. And the beauty of improv, I think, is that I think we always say is that you're not looking for the punchline. You're
mhm.
actually just going in and like, you're not supposed to get up there and like be funny. You're supposed to kind of dig into being on stage with the person that you're on stage with. And one thing that I have been trying to remember, and 'cause sometimes you fall like in and out of love with things as well. And like more recently, I've been like, best thing you can do is go and be the best scene partner for the person who's on stage. And if you can go and be like, I know that so and so loves being this type of character, I'm going to go and set her up to be a Zoe, who I mentioned before. She's going to make another. She once came on stage as a SCOBY. She loves to be inanimate object, like come to life weird, either animals or sometimes inanimate objects, and she can just come on and be a SCOBY, like a starter for is it sourdough or yeast or something like
Yeah.
that? And it was like insane and it was extremely funny. And it was like, how have you thought of this? Like, so it's great to kind of go on stage and be like, how do you set up this person to be the thing that they want to be?
Mhm.
I always want to be a sniper. I know that's dark. I always want to be like, I think it's because they say it's like your shadow character.
Mhm.
The idea of being focused and silent, not two parts of my personality, unfortunately. but I
Hmm.
would like, I can't, sometimes I'm like the idea of being focused and silent for a prolonged period of time. And like, you know, if someone can set me up to be a sniper, I'm usually really happy.
Setting up to be a sniper versus setting up to be a sourdough starter.
Exactly. So do you see the breadth, you know, of
You're
things you
right.
can be? But yeah, there's classes that are usually like 8 weeks. And if you go to training.comedycafeberlin.com, I think. And if I can plug that, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just
Please.
because I do think that even for anyone, and I've a friend of a friend, my friend brought someone once and she was like, this was mine. She enjoyed it. And she was like, I just could never, ever do this. And I was like, that's not it. You can. And if you think you can never, ever stand in front of people without anything to say, you're a person. I can stand in front of anyone and say anything for a long period of time. It's my job. You know, tour guiding, I'm not saying I'm lying to people, but sometimes you've got to improvise. If you don't know the answer, I'm not saying I make stuff up, but you might be like, oh, I need to extrapolate an answer here.
Or
So is that
deviate to something else.
just exactly. Well, I don't know what that is, but this over here is a bridge designed by Schinkel. You know, whatever. So you do improvise quite a lot as a guide, to be quite honest, or you're at least standing in front of people not knowing exactly. You do have a script in your head and you have what you say, but you're also going to have to say stuff that you're not going to know. And for people who are like, I cannot stand in front, I can't public speak, I can't. Then you are the people who should do it. I'm not saying out of, you know, no one should force anyone to do anything, but just for yourself to feel, just to feel a bit more confident that you've probably got more to say than you think. And people are more invested in you doing well than you think
Hmm.
as well. I used to think that about guiding as well, especially to people who are newer tour guides who are nervous about it. I was like, everyone is paid to watch you do well. They don't want to see you get up there and be like, "Oh," and that's fine if that happens. And you'd be surprised how many people will wait for you to go until you get your flow. You know,
Hmm.
people are actually more willing to be patient and listen to you than you think.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents about it.
No, I think that that's definitely true. Yeah, I mean, it's like if you go to anything, you want it to be good. And so when it is, it's like, all right, now I'm locked in. But also, I think it's just like it felt like a really nice outlet for play as well, and I feel like
Yeah,
adults don't really get to just, like, play and be silly that often, and I realize there's, like, comedic improv and then non-comedic improv, and, like, you guys are very funny. I don't know if you've dabbled in, like, both types or how that works, but, yeah, it was just you were playing, you were, like, playing around. It was just, yeah, fun to watch.
totally. That's what a friend of mine said that to me once early on. She was like, "We don't play, and like this is like an opportunity to play." And like I just needed an outlet for doing silly voices. Like I just was, and I think quite an irritating person who constantly was pretending to be other people or doing skits, and I just like needed an outlet for it. And eventually it came along, which was great. Yeah, to be honest, sometimes I feel like, yeah, we definitely do like the very American style, like improv, as opposed to more kind of like improv theater. And I'm like, to be honest, I'm like, oh, I would really like to kind of stretch my wings a little bit more in there. Cause to be quite honest, like I've definitely done scenes or been in sets or we've done rehearsals really where we've had some quite heartbreaking things come up. And what's usually, you know, what usually happens is you explore them in the way that we do in real life because heartbreaking things constantly come up in our lives as human beings, and you find a way to deal with them and funny things happen because
Yeah.
people are just funny. They just are. And again, that's kind of the point of like the punchline not being the point. Like eventually, you know, if you're just stood there like thinking about, you know, you'll eventually find that someone will say something funny without trying because we're ridiculous. We say funny things all the time. Or even like one thing, Georgia, one of my friends that I do two prov with, where there's just two of us, we're called Good and Proper. We kind of used to have this exercise, which we should do again actually, when if we're out walking about, just listening to snippets of conversations as people walk past. And that's kind of fun when it's like, but she didn't want to do that. And it's like, oh, what didn't she want to do? It makes the world so much more interesting. I found that once I started doing improv, it gave me such a curiosity again about the world. I was like, I'm going to listen to this random podcast about walruses and then maybe something will come out in the improv. And it's just lovely. You can just see so many different things as
Mhm.
fuel to kind of bring to the stage and play with, as you say.
Yeah. I think I forgot. I'm laughing now because my best friend and I do that when we are, we don't, she lives in London now, but when we're like traveling, we'll be like sitting in an outdoor cafe and we'll be like watching people go by. And then one of us is like, okay, the two of them, they're fighting
Yeah.
because she forgot to pack her hair dryer and she wouldn't leave the house this morning, and he was really mad because he booked a tour and now they're running late.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. And like I don't know. I guess that
What
was
is
kind
the story? Yeah.
of, but yeah, like we're always like making up random stories of people going by, and they just get more and more like outrageous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what's more important than what you're doing in your head constantly? We're just little narcissists. It's like running around, like everything that's happening to me today is the most important. This is my play. Like, this is my opera and drama. And, and like getting taxed, just tap into someone else's. And I think it can be quite cleansing in a lot of ways as well. It ways like I was talking to a guy that I know who's relatively new to it. He was saying, he's like, yeah, he was like, I had a really bad day. And then I went to my practice and it just wiped it. It just reset my brain. It did something in my brain that meant that I was like, oh, fuck it. Like, I'm someone who I think I used to find it a lot more difficult to, and I think I do still, I find it very difficult to let go of things, difficult conversations. I have a lot of social anxiety after the fact where I'm like, what did you say to that person? Like, this is the problem of being a chatty person, is that afterwards you're like, what did you just say to that person? What do they
No.
now think of you? Oh my God. But it kind of just wipes clean like a lot of that. And you're just kind of reset and like
Mhm,
re-curious about the world and re-curious about people.
mhm.
Re-curious, I don't know if that's a word. And also the fact that like people, we always joke as well that there's no one's too strange a character, because sometimes like people can be in critique and say that character wouldn't exist, that's too extreme, and then you meet people in the world and you're like, oh my God, like I couldn't imagine a person like I recently went to a card shop near my mum and dad's house, like greetings card shops
Okay.
still exist and are still a thing, and it's delightful. And I went in and this lady in there was just so sweet, but also just, I can't even describe her. She was so intense about the cards
Okay.
that it was like, yeah, and you kind of feel like, oh, if I'd have brought her to the stage, people might be like, oh Jesus, that's not very believable. But it's like people are just fascinating, just endlessly fascinating. I think that's the
Mm.
thing I like about it, is that it's just infinite.
Yeah. Like people are, yeah, no, it's so true. There are just so many characters out there that like sometimes you're talking to someone and I'm like, are you like, is this a bit? Like, is
Yeah.
this,
Did you just say that? Like, that's crazy. Like,
am I on
yeah,
camera? I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel though? Because you've been doing it 4 years now. Was it always been the same group of women that were in Turtle Logic, or does it kind of shift, ebb and flow?
Yeah, well, Total Logic was originally formed to compete in the cage match, because sometimes it can be competitive, and I was not part of that original lineup. And then I think a couple of people moved away, and then we kind of like coalesced around the six of us, and then kind of dove in on a form that we wanted to kind of like perfect. So yeah, and I think we do have quite broad, because within I suppose the improv, I don't know, kind of style that we do, there's also a lot of different styles within that, I suppose. And I think people are taught different things, and I kind of only know the system that I was taught. But for myself, like I've realized recently, like how I really like doing kind of what I think we'd call grounded stuff. Like I love just being like a character, and being very kind of grounded in who is this person, and how do they react to the people around them. Whereas I think other people are extremely quick. Like I'm not particularly quick. Like there's some of the people on the team are like incredibly fast at like swapping out something and finding, I think, what we call the game. So it's like, if this is true, what else is true is an expression you hear quite a lot. So if this person is terrified, this is going to be a really bad example if this is on the spot, but like, this person is, like terrified of the weather. What are they like, in the eye of a storm, or what are they like, I don't know, or like what are they like with their families, or see them at work, see them at home, and different things, and see if you can kind of like heighten this person's personality in different scenarios. So all that stuff can be quite quick. That might have been a poor way of explaining that, but
No, I think it makes sense. And I do think there's quite like a big difference. Because to me, improv and stand up are two completely separate things. And it irritates me to no end when people are like, yeah, I do comedy, I do improv and stand up. And I'm like, pick one or the other. You're nobody, show me someone who's good at both.
yeah, the people who are good at both are like exceptional. Yeah, there's some, and the people that I know who can do both are extremely decent. But yeah, I think you're right. Like there are different skills coming out.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing. If you're good at both, it's like, I'm good at both math and language learning. Like
Yeah,
those,
piss
I just
off.
happen to be good at, you know. Yeah, and it's just wild to me when people are like, "Yeah, I do, stand up so I could like translate that to improv." And I'm just like, "No, like those are two different things."
Yeah, I mean, I've done like a little bit of stand up. I have a type 5 that I could pull
Yeah.
out. Um, it's too much effort. I'd have to write. I'd have to sit down and think about it, and I can't be asked. And to be honest, like I like hosting. Quite happily would host and like maybe like play with the audience a little bit.
But that
But
is kind of like a crowd work sort of thing. I feel like that is a skill that translates. Like
yeah,
if you want to if you're a stand-up comedian, you want to get better at crowd work, then
yeah,
maybe improv is for you. But other than that,
yeah.
the very different skills.
Yeah, I think and I think sometimes with I think for me personally, sometimes I find stand up a bit lonely. Like
Mhm.
I just and I found that I do like the communal kind of element of improv. Some people hate that, So you talk to a lot of stand ups, and yeah, there's definitely eye rolling, I think, that goes on between both kind of communities, and people are just looking for different things, and they're enjoying different things, and that's totally fair. But yeah, I have to admit I found it a little bit lonely, and I just don't get the same easy buzz that I get from improv. That's
Mhm.
not to say, and actually something I've been feeling in the new year, and like trying to be a bit more like, I've noticed at the end of last year I was like doing the same characters over and over again, and I was like, oh, come on, like try harder. So I'm trying to be a bit more like a bit less lazy, because you don't want, the thing that kind of got you out of being lazy to become the thing that you're lazy with. But I guess that's the thing that happens when you do things a lot. I don't know.
I think that's everything though. Like I was talking to a friend, a very similar conversation, but specifically about like German. And we were talking about like we were like, okay, we know so many like big words now. Do we use the big words? No.
Yeah.
I'm using the same words that I've been using for a year now. And I don't know, sometimes it's like, if you just put in like a little bit of extra brain power, you could like really start coloring your language a little bit better.
Yeah.
But both of us were like,
It's hard.
yeah, because you gotta like yeah, it requires effort again.
Yeah. Oh, you know what I should say? Also, again, mega plug. You can also do improv in German at the comedy cafe. So, and sometimes I'm like, I should just go and watch it because I enjoy it so much. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Because I'm the same. Like, it's been years of struggling with the German language. Like I have a B1, but
Mhm.
it's dropped off quite a lot since I took that exam, and in a very privileged position of not having struggling in the way that a lot of people do, to be accepted in German culture. I'm a white Northern European woman, and so finding the thing that will kind of not inspire you but will make you passionate about it. I mean, one of the things that made me passionate, where we did an episode about, I think they call it Weimar on the Pacific, and thinking about like these like Jewish refugees from Germany during the war who had gone to California and were making films and speaking in German, finding solace speaking German there together. And that was something that I was like, that really inspired me to be like, okay, because I was so interested in that topic. And like with improv, it's like, okay, you like that, try watching more German. So that's something that I would definitely plug as well for anyone.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And then also just by the nature of everything that we do in our late stage capitalism, I feel like everything kind of goes online. So it's like I think about that sometimes where I'm like, all right, get out of the house. Like, because I'm like, I do German classes online, which that's just convenient. I can fit them in my workday, which is also online. But
Yeah.
then, yeah, like we were talking about earlier, I have my neighbor who I go and talk to for like an hour once a week, and he feels like he's doing community service, and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting something out of it. And it's like
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just like a nice.
Yeah.
He's a bit older, and yeah, so it's just I think having things that you can go do in that language. So like going to an improv show in German, I think is yeah. I need to sign up and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think my problem is that I think I'm so like, everything has to be forever. And it does, like, what you're saying about going to see your neighbor, what a great fucking thing to do, because loneliness is a problem as well. And I often think for, elderly people, like, for myself, I've always been like, you could go to I don't want to be in the way. That's my, but it's like, it doesn't have to be forever, go and just try something for a bit, just see what kind of like, what pathways it opens. And yeah, going outside, I feel again quite lucky being a guide. Not
Mhm.
that I've been out much this week, and my God, who would when it's like -10?
Yeah, no.
It's oh God, it's really it's tough, but yeah, the online thing, it can really push you to
Mhm.
go. And yeah, like we're in Berlin, and this is one of the reasons that this is one of the things I love about this town is that there's so much small stuff that is
Yeah.
happening. And maybe I'm totally wrong, but I don't because I know that you can do improv in so many different cities and big cities as well. But I part of me just feels like it would feel so unattainable in a place like London, which is not
Mhm.
true. You can go. There are fantastic places in London where you can go and do it. But like here, getting to perform regularly, it just feels so accessible.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like that, because I used to, in a past life, run a comedy club in Shanghai, and,
What?
that's a weird one.
That's amazing.
Anyway, we were running shows in, Mandarin, Shanghainese, Ukrainian, Russian, and English, and we would be,
What?
like, you know, testing, like, which audiences can go in which order, and so it was just, it was crazy. But anyway, what was interesting, the point I'm trying to make here is that a lot of the comedians would, like, complain about, like, their stage time, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, "You are getting" because there were 3 main clubs in Shanghai that did English language shows, and they'd be going from each one to each one, and I'm like, "Okay, so on 3 nights a week, you're getting, say, 15 to 20 minutes of stage time. That's unheard of. Like, imagine trying to, like, come up in New York or Chicago or London or, like, you're gonna be battling it out for, like, 2 minutes, and you're not gonna learn anything out of that 2 minutes. It's gonna be in a room full of other comedians. Like, basically, you're complaining because you're getting a 5-minute slot on, this open mic where there's actual people here to see you. And I think in Berlin, I have very little patience for expat comedy now because I'm just burned out of it because the jokes are very similar in Shanghai and in Berlin,
Right.
just with,
Interesting.
different colors.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just crazy, like, you do I think in stand-up, at least, I can speak to here in Berlin, I feel like you are gonna get a lot more time to practice a lot faster. Like, you're not gonna be, like, fighting for a spot to, like, experiment, and that's, yeah, very different from I don't know about improv, but, yeah, very different from, yeah, a big city like London, like, trying to, like, get in with a group or, like, learn a skill or, like, have an audience that's, like, looking
Yeah.
at you.
And I'm saying that with very little authority. I don't, someone could turn around and say like, "Oh no, it's actually pretty," and
I don't
I
know.
think just Berlin lends itself to the smaller scene,
Mhm.
which I know in some ways people don't want to be in the small scene, they want to be in the big time. And it's like, great, but that was your question about what do you do for money and what do you do for joy? And the
Mhm.
thing is that um well, good luck making it. Like, like I don't and also what does that look like? What does that mean? People could say, well, you're just not very talented and blah 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 blah. It's like I don't, if about the here and now, I get to like perform quite regularly. I get to perform with my friends. I'm going to 2 festivals this spring, which I feel very privileged to be able to do. 4
Mhm.
years ago, I had never been on a stage,
Yeah.
really, and it's like, it's a real privilege, like, that I just maybe it's me, maybe it's the combination of Berlin and me, I don't know, but yeah, I think for music as well, like, there's things I can't speak to it, with a massive amount of authority, but there's so many scenes, right? Like that's the expression in German. Like there are things, and there are things, right? There's
Yeah.
things that like, you're like, okay, that person is into that. Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
go for it. Enjoy. I remember seeing a guy on the S-Bahn a platform at Friedrichstrasse on a Sunday morning, and he was maybe in his like mid 60s, full head to toe leather, and he had his tripod in his hand, and he was going out at 10 a.m. He wasn't coming back. He was going out at 10 a.m.
Mhm.
on a Sunday in his full leather, like gimp outfit. And it was like, enjoy your Sunday, sir.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like, get out
it's just like, it
and you
doesn't
have an
have to be
interest,
some
go pursue
crazy,
it.
it doesn't have to be some crazy kink thing, but it can be, it's like, I just love that it's like, go for it. Like, do your thing. And that was something I felt like Berlin gave to me that maybe I was too self-conscious in Britain. I don't know. Because
Mhm.
I'm from just outside of Liverpool, and they always say you can't be a musician or a comedian in Liverpool because everyone can do it better. Or everyone thinks they
But
can do it better.
I think that's what Berlin kinda gives people is, like, you don't have to make money off of your passion, or you don't have to be famous. Because also I think nowadays too, if you do wanna be famous, you have to like be an expert marketer. It's not just
Yeah,
like, oh, you can be good at art and then like move forward. It's
yeah,
like now you got to like promote yourself and like have this engaging like Instagram
yeah,
account, or like you got to like
yeah,
be pushing stuff all the time. Like it's exhausting if
yeah,
like all you want to do is act or be a
yeah,
musician, or
yeah,
like, because if it's about producing music, which granted some people I think do, they want that. They want like
yeah,
the
yeah,
fame, and like fine. But I think a
sure.
lot of people in Berlin are kind of like, I'm creating for the sake of it, and that's just
Yeah.
a different outlook.
And I think that's I wonder, and maybe that's quite a positive thing actually, whether we're like
Yeah.
going back to local scenes. I know
Mhm.
a lot of bands like locally who are refusing to put stuff on streaming platforms, and people are like, "Oh my God, like that's insane. Well, no one will be able to hear it." It's like, actually, people are
That's fine.
it's you're not they wouldn't hear it anyway. You know, we know that Spotify is a heinous machine, you know,
Mhm.
from top to bottom, and that only what is it? What percentage of people get any freaking money from Spotify? So what's the
Like
point
none.
anyway?
Yeah.
So like, you know, yeah, I think I wonder whether we will see more of a resurgence to small local theatres where you can go and see an absolutely brilliant comedy show locally for like 10 to 15 euros.
Mm.
And that will be your rather than, oh, it cost me God knows how much to go and see literally anyone, like literally anyone. Go and try and see anyone at the Mercedes Benz. And it's God, that's so much money.
Yeah.
So maybe there is this kind of like resurgence to like small local scenes, and that really good stuff comes out of that, you know?
It does.
So
And it feels good when you find something that's really like, I don't know, you go in and you, like you said, low expectations, and then you come out and you're like, oh, that was so good. Like
yeah,
there's that's a good feeling.
yeah, it's key to a happy life. And I'm not saying don't dream big, but like, you know, what to me, like, uh, we do sets, and I'm like, there couldn't be anything better than that, than like, you know, we've had like audiences before. We've had bigger audiences that didn't where sets didn't go, so shows didn't go as well. And then
Mm.
we've had like an audience like your audience, for example, when there's like 7 to 10 people and it's electric.
Yeah.
And you're like, that was brilliant. And I couldn't really want a performance if you know, if I get to the end of my life and I get to relive one performance, that would be it. You know, it doesn't have
Mhm.
to be this like great thing. We can find joy more locally to us. And I think that's what we're finding in this time of our late stage capitalism.
I love that. I think that's a good place to probably start
Yeah?
winding down here. I think that, yeah, that's like a really lovely sentiment. I think we
Shop
can
local.
shop local, find your joy locally, find your joy in your neighborhood.
Yeah. I just talked. I mean, but that's what you wanted.
That's what I want. This was everything I wanted and more.
Oh, good.
So thank
Good.
you.
Yeah.
Pip
Thank you so
Roper,
much.
you killed it today.
Brilliant. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, because sometimes like a guest will come on and it's like a little bit harder to like, get a conversation flow. Like I
Oh,
do,
no, not me.
you said earlier, you were like, I'm not that interesting of a person, and I wholeheartedly disagree. I think you're
I
quite an
appreciate that.
interesting
That's really
person.
nice.
Yeah, you got some cool angles, and they all intersect, and yeah, very very cool. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much
This is
for
a
here.
lovely experience. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, if anyone wants to listen to History Flakes or follow our Johnny Whitlam, he's doing a great job
Hmm.
on the old Instagram. Yeah, as I say, there's plenty of places to do the old improv in the city. If you've been thinking about it, this is your reminder that you should actually go and look and sign up and do a class. As I say, my experience at the Comedy Cafe in Neukölln has always been a really fantastic one. There's a beautiful community there. Or just come by for a drink and see a show.
Yeah, that I can
Yeah.
recommend. I
Yes.
don't know if I know there was already talk that we were coming back to another one, but I don't know if that's happening this month or next month, but I forget the dates. So you'll
There's
see me
always
again. I'll be back.
Yeah,
It was
please.
that
Yeah.
good that I'm going back.
Amazing. Yay!
Well, thank you so much for being
No
here.
problem. Brilliant.